Today, I'm going to share with you the actual process that took me from being a prescription junkie to being somebody who is full of life, wants the fullest from life, and helps others seek the fullest from life too. You see, transformation is simpler than we think. Simpler doesn't mean easier, but it does mean simpler. We can make the whole thing so complicated, and we're constantly seeking something externally. I'm going to show you how you can go inwards. I'm going to show you how I used this process to come off all of my pills, how I used it to transform my life in the last 10 years, how I'm using it to run my business, how I'm also using it now to give up cannabis for the month of November. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. So the first thing I did was understand that there is something greater. There is something greater working to and through me. It's doing the same for each of us. We are not separate from source. We are connected to source. We are not separate from nature. We are connected and a part of nature. So I started to look at the rules of nature and started to apply them to myself. Simpler is an acronym. Simpler begins with spirituality. It begins with understanding that you are made of something so much more than the world taught you. You are so powerful. I said in previous videos, if God, energy, is omnipresent, it means that there is nowhere that God is not, which means that God permeates every single cell of your being. Part of the reason why we go through life so frustrated is because we think that we are alone here in this random experience of life. But actually, when you start to work with life, you can experiment with it and create magnificence, because you are made for magnificence. You are magnificent. So I started to recognize and understand spiritual and universal laws, and I started to apply them. I know everyone's heard of the law of attraction and the law of vibration. What we put out is what we draw back to us. So I started to shift what I was expecting for myself. I started to tell myself that I was a very powerful being, that I had the greatest power flowing to and through me. You see, if you want to vacuum your house, you can have a vacuum sitting here, but that vacuum's not going to work until you plug it in and turn it on. The same with us. We've got to plug ourselves in and turn ourselves on. Like, let's go. Understand that there is something so much bigger waiting to work through us. So the first place I began was understand my spirituality. And I started to understand that thoughts are powerful. Thoughts are like spiritual seeds. And I started to understand how we can imprint our thoughts onto our subconscious mind. We do that through repetition, we do it through emotion, we do it through visualization. So I started to implement those tools into my life. I started to visualize first thing in the morning and last thing at night. In fact, I would set alarms in my phone to visualize and to remind myself of all these things, that I am a powerful being, that I am connected to source. That is how I first started to make the shift. So what I was doing was becoming intentional. And intention makes the second part of the simpler method. Intention and thinking about where I wanted to be, what I wanted to create. Neuroscience tells us that when we focus on an idea for 17 seconds at a time, we actually draw particles together to start creating a 3D form. This is all backed up. Go check it out. Go do your Google searches. This stuff is real. So it wasn't just simply thinking about what I wanted. It was actually thinking from that place as if that had already happened and work my way backwards. So I started to think about what life would be like. I started to think about how I wanted to feel in the future. I started to think about what I wanted to experience, what I wanted to express from my beautiful life. So that was the second part. The third part of it is understanding the mind. Like I said, I started to think about my mind as being a powerful source, like a spiritual garden. So then our thoughts are spiritual seeds. And I started to understand that I can choose the thoughts I want. I can create thoughts I want, and I can reject thoughts I don't want. We have this power. Isn't that crazy? We've gone through life not knowing that we have this power within us. But the thing is, it's never too late to start using it. For as long as you've got breath in your body, for as long as you wake up every single day, you have the power to tap into your power. So I started to think every single morning about what I wanted my day to look like, what I wanted my life to look like. Visualize that repeatedly. It's not just about doing it one time and thinking it's a one and done. It isn't. You have to get conscious and present every single day. Why? Because we humans are designed to be habitual beings, because the brain likes to preserve energy. So we love to create habits that we then don't have to consciously think about. My friends, if there are things we want to change, it's because there are habits that we've fallen into, whether that's thinking habits, feeling habits, action habits, whatever it might be, we've fallen into them. So we get to then look at what is my life showing to me and what do I want instead? I started to shift my habits and I started to think about what I wanted to do differently, how I wanted to show up. It meant that I wasn't going to bed watching TV at night. I wasn't staying up. I wasn't sleeping in. I wasn't hitting snooze. I wasn't watching TV first thing. I was reading instead. And I was filling my mind with images and information and wisdom that was going to support me moving forward, not pull me back, not numb me out. Because a lot of the things that we do in life are distractions to take us away from how we're feeling. This brings me on to physical, the P that makes up my simpler method. I started to take physical actions. I started to replace things that didn't serve me for the vision I've intentionally started to create. And I started to do things instead that did support me. Read first thing in the morning, read last thing at night, meditate, pray, visualize, get coaches, get support, be mentored. I started to move my body. I started to take care of my physical self. Has anybody heard of the Marie Kondo method? I Marie Kondoed my entire house. I am a very tidy and organized person anyway. But when I was going through my sad period, when I was going through that depressed period, I was just buying a load of junk. My house was full of junk. And I mean things that I thought I was going to upcycle. I've never upcycled a thing in my life. I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought it might be a nice try. So what I actually had to do when I began this process was clear out the junk that I'd collected. But how much junk do we carry and collect in our minds? How much junk do we have within us that we don't need to be holding on to? So I started to do mental lists of the stuff that I'm thinking about and then think, nope, we're replacing that. I'm changing that. So not only did I clear up mentally, I did the same then in my physical environment with the Marie Kondo method, and I cleared out my entire space. So I made those physical changes, and those physical changes I did repeatedly because, like I said, we are habitual beings. And how we learned to be habitual is by doing the same thing over and over and over again. And in order to create new habits, we need to do things over and over and over again. Repetition is the key to mastery. I started to ensure that I was moving my body every single day. I started to make sure that I was clearing my mental clutter. I made sure that my physical environment was pleasing to my senses. Like there wasn't chaos around me, that there wasn't junk that I was hoping to upcycle. There was none of that. I cleared my physical environment and I started to move my physical body. And this all came from a place of understanding, love. Love makes up the L in the simpler method. I started to treat myself like somebody I loved. I started to treat myself like somebody God loved. I started to treat myself with love. I stopped being so mean to myself. I stopped telling myself that I was worthless. I stopped telling myself that I was only worthy if X person told me I was worthy, or if Y person thought that I was worthy. I stopped hinging my self-worth and my self-belief on other people. I stopped hooking my self-worth and self-love on other people's ideas about me, and I started to create better ideas about myself. I started to treat myself like somebody I loved. I started to talk to myself like somebody I loved, and I made sure that the shifting of my habits was reminding me every single day that I'm doing this because I love me. I love me. I'm worthy because God made me. You're worthy because God made you. We don't need anybody else's validation. We just need to remember and validate ourselves. And remember I said that simpler doesn't mean easier. Let me tell you, it wasn't always easy. There are still days where my mind sometimes interrupts and says, are you sure about this? Are you sure you believe this? Are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. You see, anytime that little voice comes up, it is just an old part of your programming that checks in to say, hey, this thing that you're trying to do is very uncomfortable. I would much rather go back to my comfort and familiarity. But growth doesn't happen in comfort and familiarity. It comes through moving yourself through the discomfort. It comes from choosing to be uncomfortable through change. Change does not happen in your comfort zone. You have to stretch beyond what you know already. And when those voices come up, go back, remind yourself of your spirituality, become intentional again, tap into your mind powers again, start to move things physically, because when you take action, when you take physical action, you help dissolve those feelings of worry and doubt, and you start to move forward in the direction that you want to go. And you act from a place of love and you move forward. This then comes down to, what do we believe on an emotional level? The next part of the simpler method, emotional awareness. What is it that might be rooting me into an older identity? What are the feelings that are coming up and where are they coming from? We talk about this in my work with the map of consciousness. Are we rooted in scarcity? Are we rooted in survival? Because when we're rooted in survival, the brain doesn't care about abundance and it doesn't care about purpose. It doesn't care about any of that, because all it cares about is keeping you safe, because it assumes that change means danger. So then we start to work on our emotional awareness. We start to develop emotional intelligence. I went through life thinking, I am angry. No, I'm not angry. I maybe had angry moments. I went through life saying, I am depressed. No, I was having depressed moments that I assumed were my identity, and they weren't. They were my body's response to the experiences that I had, but I didn't know I had other tools available to me. I didn't know that I could choose my thoughts. I didn't know that I could move up in emotional awareness. I didn't know any of this, and so I got rooted and stuck. We're not trees. We don't have to be stuck in an identity. We don't have to be stuck in an old experience. We can choose new experiences for ourselves. This is what this is about. You can choose where you want to go in your life. You have that capability. And so the final part of the simpler method is routine. I routinely checked in with my spirituality, checked in with my intention, checked in with my mind, checked in with my physical self, checked in with how I was feeling about myself. Was I talking and treating myself with love? Was I exuding love to other people? I checked in with my emotional awareness and intelligence. Where was I on the map of consciousness? What was I experiencing? What was coming up? And I did this routinely, and I created a new routine for myself. You see, when we do things repeatedly, we are creating neural pathways in our brain. It's like when I take the dog for a walk and we go to our nearest fields. There are certain pathways that have been created through the fields for people like me to walk through. Now, there's crops either side of the pathway, but that path is there because people have walked through it over and over and over. And actually, even when the crops are taken down and new land is cultivated, that path still remains because people walk through it. But if people were to stop walking through it, that path would eventually become overgrown with crops too. The same goes for our minds. The more we do something, we create little grooves in the brain, neural pathways in the brain. When we repeatedly do something, it becomes habitual and you don't have to consciously think about it. So I don't have to think I'm not going to hit snooze in the morning. I don't have to think, oh, I'm going to go pray in the morning. I don't have to think about visualizing in the morning. This I've done so much that it's become a part of my world. And that's the simpler method. The simpler method is actually what I've used this month in November to change how I'm using medicinal cannabis. In fact, I've used the simpler method to not use cannabis this whole month. And we are on day 14. I haven't used cannabis in 14 days. This is the first time in 10 years where I've gone this long without cannabis. And it is because simpler method. I tapped into my spirituality. I have everything I know and need within me. Everything that I require to move forward is provided to me through my source. I became intentional. Why do I want to do this? What do I want to achieve on the other side? How do I want to feel? I stopped thinking about what I wanted and started to think from the end and think from that place where I don't use it anymore. So my mind, that cannot tell the difference between real or imagined, started to believe that I no longer use cannabis because I was thinking about it from the end. I started to use my mind more wisely. I started to cultivate those spiritual seeds, my thought seeds, reject the idea that I might not be able to do it, because let me tell you, that fear did come up. It did come up where I thought, oh God, you've been doing this for 10 years. Are you sure you want to do this? I started to remind myself, no, change isn't scary, dear one. Change is not scary. It feels scary, but change is where growth happens. We're okay. I learned to talk to my inner child, and I learned to talk to my inner child with love. I started to treat myself with love. This is a loving thing to do. Growth is a great thing to do when you love yourself. And I made a routine out of it. So I started to talk to myself with love, become emotionally aware, and I started to switch my routine around using cannabis. I don't use it first thing in the morning, don't use it in the middle of the afternoon, and I don't use it at nighttime. I just don't use it. It's not a part of my day. So what do I do instead? I might go read a book. I might go for an extra walk with the dog. I might do 100 jumps. I might do anything to switch up one routine for something better, something greater. So do the same with any transformation that you want to create. Practice your spirituality. Get in touch with your source. Become intentional about what you want to do. Tap into your mind. Use your mind. It is your greatest tool. Change up your physical environment so that the same things that trigger you and anchor you into an old identity no longer do so. Physically move your body. Treat yourself with love. Talk to yourself with love. Become emotionally aware. Which part of you is present in your day to day? Is it your inner child trying to keep you safe? How can you actually communicate with your inner child, which is a part of you within you? And how can you be present for your inner child as your adult self? How can you reparent yourself and remind your central nervous system that you're okay? How can you teach your central nervous system that you are okay? Then build a routine that supports the vision that you're trying to create, that you want to create. It's simpler than you think. Simpler doesn't mean easier, but it does mean simpler. You have to do the work. You have to show up for you, though. When you start showing up for you, you will see how the universe is always showing up for you too. Make your transformation simpler and create the magnificent life that you think isn't for you, but you really want it. My friends, it is for you. Otherwise, it wouldn't be trying to get your attention, and you don't have to go get it from out there. It all begins within you. Every single part of this begins within you. And you have everything you need within you. If you need support with your transformation, if you need support with the idea that you are worthy, if you need support in overcoming those limiting beliefs and ideas that have held you hostage, if you need support in training your central nervous system to feel safe as you do go after the things that you want, come and join me on my simpler method, where we work together in transforming our lives, where we magnify our energies by coming together and make this bigger and greater and quicker than anything that you've ever done before. I'll pop the link in the description below. Come and check it out. Greatness awaits you on the other side of the transformation that you're about to create. And I would love to join you and support you on this journey. So come and join me, and let's make your 2026 the year that you realize and remember who you actually are, what you're actually capable of, and what you're really here for. Why the universe created you and said the world needs one of you. I hope you'll join me. I'll see you on the inside, or I'll see you here again next week.